Okay, what is up, bladders? It's Wombat, and today we're going to be talking about weight distribution, which is a term I've thrown around a lot in my videos but never really explained in detail, so I'm going to be going more into that today. So in Beyblade, there's two main types of weight distribution that we're going to be talking about today, and that is outward weight distribution, where all of the weight is on the perimeter, and then inward weight distribution, where all of the weight is in the center. So each has its own advantages and drawbacks and can be used differently in competitive play. And there's also technically like a balanced weight distribution as well, which would be just equally balanced throughout the entire horizontal center of the top. But that's kind of just a jack of all trades that is not super good at doing anything that these more specialized weight distributions are good at. So first I'm going to be talking about outward weight distribution, which is going to be where the weight is around the perimeter. This is the more common and the more popular one to be talked about. It's much more noticeable in MFB and plastics and HMS than it is in burst, but it still makes quite an impact in burst as well. So the reason this works is because of what's known as the flywheel effect, which is centripetal force, I want to say, because like centrifugal force isn't a thing, supposedly. I forget the exact like physical rule behind it, but basically when it's spinning, the weight on the outside will keep it going longer and increase its stamina as well as its speed, so which makes it good for both stamina and attack types, because it will improve their stamina as well as their movement speed. And probably the best examples of this in the entire game ever are the Phantom Wheel from MFB, which is literally like a 40-gram metal ring with a plastic core in the center. So it is as outward weight distributed as you can get, and this is why it's like such a legendary stamina type, because this combined with the bearing drive allows it to spin for about 7 minutes. And another like famous example of this is the wide defense weight disc from plastics. Aside from being like a near perfect circle, it weighed about 15 grams, which makes it one of the heaviest weight discs as well. And it also had most of this weight packed around the outside, making it great for stamina and also attack. It's basically the best weight disc in the entire game. Other examples of this are Hell Salamander with all of the metal in these 5 blades around the outside. Zwei Longinus with most of the metal on these 2 dragon heads here. Circle Upper from Death Gargoyle. As you can see, it has the metal ring around the outside. Circle Wide from HMS. This also has the similar outward weight distribution. And then finally, the Outer Disc from Burst, which was actually temporarily banned because it not only had great outward weight distribution, but also a smooth life after death surface, which made it too powerful in both categories for a while, so it was temporarily banned for that. There are other examples as well, but these are just the first ones that come to mind, or ones that like show off the concept the best. So up next is inward or centralized weight distribution. This doesn't have as defined of an acronym because it's not nearly as popular as outward weight distribution is anymore. It was much more of a thing during the plastics era, but it's still kind of present in MFB and burst. In plastics, there was actually a whole genre of combos dedicated around this called compacts, where, as the name suggests, would use like a heavy disc like 10 heavy and the heavy metal core, a stationary not driver base, and then a small layer to just have kind of a small little rock that just spins in the center really fast. So what makes centralized weight distribution good is it gives the Beyblade a higher RPM and more stability and defense as well. And the higher RPM is good for both upper and smash attack as well as destabilization, just because you will be able to get in more rotations and have a better chance to scoop the opponent up or hit them downward with the slopes, depending on which kind of attack you're using, as well as knock them off balance in the same way. There are a bunch of parts that are good at this. 10 Heavy is the one I mentioned earlier. So is Circle Heavy, which is like the HMS version of that. The Heavy Disc from Burst, and then the more modern version of that. This is like the classic version. This is the standard version, would be Blitz. And the best example from MFB, it doesn't really exist in MFB too much, would be Jade in defense mode. Just because that's where all the balls are kind of locked in towards the center, but they're so small, and Jade is kind of a light wheel that it doesn't really affect it too much. And then finally, Vice Leopard, which is probably the most popular one thanks to my channel, has most of its weight in the center, which makes it good for destabilization, which is why it was used in that one spicy combo that's kind of popular and pretty out of date nowadays. There was also a myth that started way back in the Plastics era about centralized weight distribution being better for opposite spin matchups. But that was later proven to be untrue back in, I think, 2014 or 2015 by the Black Dragon and Stony, when they tested like wide defense versus wide survivor, which is, wide survivor is basically this, but lighter and smoother for opposite spin matchups in Plastics. And then the Black Dragon tested middle phase light versus middle phase middle for opposite spin stamina matchups, and middle phase light was winning by a lot. So it is outward weight distribution is actually better for opposite spin than centralized weight distribution is. So that's gonna be about it for the video. Sorry if my voice was kind of like wearing out as I was speaking, but I've been kind of sick these past few days, so that's why. But yeah, if you thought this was informative, it's kind of just not really super going into depth, but just explaining what these two weight distributions are, how they affect them, and how they are good. If you want, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys in the next one.